board. I was like, what is a label board? That's definitely something we need to know.
It's the mass.
It's the mass. But, I'm glad you even broke it down like that. Go Google Department of Labor, and you'll find information there for sure. What kind of training is available for commercial refrigeration outside? Is there any outside of what you'll receive when you join your program at your local technical and community college? Well, thank you so much, Mr. McWhorter, for taking me on that amazing virtual tour. We are here at Georgia Piedmont Technical College. I'm here with Gerald McWhorter, who is the instructor for the commercial refrigeration program here. He's also involved in other programs here as well. Let him give you guys a little bit of background. But this is so cool in here. Give me some information. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that we just saw.
Well, I mean, we looked at ice machines. We looked at basic walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer. We looked at what we call the parallel rack system, which handles all the refrigeration in a major grocery store. And so we teach our students to understand how this equipment is maintained and how to properly service the various aspects of the commercial refrigeration industry.
And when was this lab built?
This lab was built in 2008.
And you guys have any plans to bring in new equipment or renovate or anything like that?
Yeah, we're looking as new technologies emerge, we're looking to work these technologies into our lab. We've done this with an ice machine that we just purchased a few months ago. It has some of the latest technology. And even when you think of motors, they have different things that control motors for greater efficiency, such as a variable frequency drive. So we're looking to add that to a couple of our compressors.
And Mr. McWhorter, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you hear about commercial refrigeration and get involved here at GPTC?
Well, I was a student here. Of course, the school was called DeKalb Technical College back in 1982. And I went here for 2 years, and that's where I initially took commercial refrigeration, air conditioning and commercial refrigeration. I ended up working out in the field with Johnson Controls. When I graduated here, in North Carolina, the Wilmington, North Carolina branch hired me. So I moved to North Carolina, worked there for a few years before returning to Atlanta. And I worked for MARTA, the transit system, here for 5 years. Mainly I worked on air conditioning chillers before teaching here, getting hired here in 1990.
That's something that we wouldn't have known if we didn't have the opportunity to get to know our STEM champions. You're one of our STEM champions, and get to know your history and the opportunities that are out there. So tell us a little bit about what is commercial refrigeration?
Let me start with just regular refrigeration. We all have a refrigerator at home, and we know what it does. It keeps our food cold, it makes ice.
Yes.
So that's domestic refrigeration. Commercial refrigeration involves basically the same idea, but on a larger scale. We go into our grocery stores, we're buying vegetables, we're buying milk and juices and fruit. Well, that's medium temp refrigeration, medium temp commercial refrigeration, and then you have low temp. Low temp keeps our ice cream frozen and other frozen foods. So commercial refrigeration relates to a commercial environment opposed to residential or domestic. Restaurants, they use commercial refrigeration. Hospitals, they have kitchens, they need walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers for keeping food cold at a certain temperature.
Interesting. And so when you walk into the grocery store, we go in, as you mentioned, we're very familiar with ice cream, we're very familiar with milk. We walk in, we open the refrigerators, and we grab our produce, and we're out. But we don't think like there are people who are working on these massive pieces of equipment. There are people maintaining this equipment to keep our food cold or frozen. So I'm wondering, where do commercial refrigeration technicians typically work?
Well, they work, as you mentioned, they work for contractors who service grocery stores. They work at hospitals. They work at restaurants, or companies who take care of the maintenance and installation of commercial refrigeration. They even work on ships and boats, because you think about a cruise ship, you have all of that food for the passengers, and you have to keep that food cold. So we have commercial refrigeration technicians that work on cruise ships and all sorts of marine vessels. Wow,
interesting. So I'm wondering, why isn't this industry more widely known? And is this, it sounds like it's hitting a vast variety of markets, but is it a large industry?
It's certainly it is, because we think you can ask the question, is a grocery store a large industry? Mm-hmm. We know the answer to that is yes. And so where you have grocery stores, you have refrigeration in the grocery stores. Where you have refrigeration, you have people who take care of that equipment. Mm-hmm. Same is true as restaurants. You have to have someone to take care of the equipment in the restaurant, such as commercial refrigeration equipment. So here's the thing, as long as everything is working, people don't give much attention to the equipment and who's taking care of it. But if it stops working, then they think about those people who are responsible for repairing the equipment.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Then you start to wonder, what number do I need to dial to come fix this?
Absolutely right.
Thank you so much, Mr. McWhorter, for giving us this information about commercial refrigeration and giving us the virtual tour. As I mentioned, that will be on our YouTube channel, where you guys will have access to take a look at some of the equipment that we discussed. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. And we're back. Thank you so much again, Mr. McWhorter. We just spoke about the variety of job opportunities in commercial refrigeration, where a commercial refrigeration technician can work at the hospital or at your local grocery store. Now, how does a student transition, for example, from your program into one of those positions?
An excellent question. And that's the main thing, the main purpose or thrust of the program, to close the gap between a student completing and then going to work. So one of the things about our curriculum, we have an internship. This is a course that students take, and we have a relationship with our industry partners, and they can intern with the company, such as CDC. CDC, we know, is Center for Disease. There is a federal contractor that handles all the maintenance for CDC. And so every semester, I place interns with them. I placed as many as 10 interns at one time with this company that takes care of the maintenance for CDC. And after the 80-hour intern, many of our students have been hired by them. And those students that do not take the internship, other companies, as a result of having a great relationship with industry through our advisory committee board, I'm able to place students through those member companies, such as the grocery stores, Kroger, Publix, Walmart, Costco, and several other commercial refrigeration contractors.
Interesting. So with this internship, students would sign up for the commercial refrigeration program via the GPTC website, and will they automatically be entered into the internship, or is there a separate sign up for that?
Well, we have a diploma and a 2-year associate's degree program. The intern only applies to the associate's degree program. It's an actual class that they have to take. It's part of the curriculum, and the internship site, they're the ones who evaluate or grade that student based on information that I give them, a check sheet.
I see. Okay, that's good information. Also, you mentioned that you've placed some of your students in the internship to work in the internship program for the CDC. What are these students doing at the CDC for commercial refrigeration?
Well, the CDC, as you might know, they test diseases, and they have refrigeration equipment that gets these diseases down to a minus 111 degrees Fahrenheit because they want to freeze these diseases over a period of time. They can thaw them out and continue to test them. And so someone needs to service and maintain that ultra-low commercial refrigeration equipment. And so they need technicians, commercial refrigeration technicians, to do that.
And boy, do we need them more than ever now that we're all going through COVID. We definitely want to make sure that that equipment is being maintained properly, because I don't think I can quarantine another second of my life. That's interesting. That's great information. How do you see this industry growing? And speaking of COVID and us having this quarantine time, and the unemployment rate is just through the roof, how do you see this industry maintaining through all of that?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, and I've talked to several of my former students. They've been busier now than ever.
Wow.
Because, again, grocery stores are critical. The work at CDC is critical. So our industry very seldom does it face a lull. So when the economy's bad, the students are still placed, they're still being hired, they're still working at least 40 hours. So that's why it's such a tremendous industry.
So do you think does that mean that it increases employers' need for these skilled technicians? Is that need increase exponentially during a time of downturn?
Yes, for a couple of different reasons, because most of the technicians in this industry are in their late 50s, early 60s, and they're retiring, and their employers have not been able to replace these workers as they retire. So right now there is a tremendous need for commercial refrigeration technicians.
How do you think we're going to bring in that younger audience? You mentioned, of course, through us doing podcasts like this, getting to know your story, getting to know some of your students' stories. But is there any other way that you think or recommend that, could happen for us to really target and get this younger audience involved in this industry?
Well, we've been having these discussions with instructors across the country. How do we get the word out? I mean, through podcasts like this, maybe through educating parents, getting students, making them aware as early as elementary school, because I have a couple of young students that are 22 years old. They finished the program a couple of years ago, and they're making $28 an hour, and that's 22 years old.
Yeah.
And people are just, they're not aware of the fact that it is a career that it can be sustained.
Yes.
Through ups and downs of the economy.
So this 22-year-old, what options would he or she have to advance in this industry?
Well, they can continue to grow in their knowledge and experience base and just stay with the company. Or one of the things about our 2-year degree program, we have an articulation agreement with a 4-year college. So a student can continue to go to school. He can take most of the coursework online and then end up with a 4-year degree and can eventually own his own company if that is his desire.
That sounds great. I think the listeners are going to love those options. You guys, we're going to take another quick break. Thank you so much for giving us that information about the commercial refrigeration industry, specifically for the technicians. We really need younger technicians to enter into this industry. So we'll be right back to continue wrapping up this topic. And we're back. And we just finished talking about how this industry isn't really known, especially among the younger population, our younger audience. And my question is, where can young people become educated on the opportunities in commercial refrigeration?
Well, they can go to our website, gptc.edu, and look on the air conditioning, commercial refrigeration, and they can look at the curriculum. That's one thing that they can do. And another thing, they could just go to the labor board. The labor board highlights that air conditioning, refrigeration, we're behind in hiring people. We need about 20 to 50,000 commercial refrigeration and air conditioning techs. So they can go to the labor board. But the easiest thing is to go to their local technical colleges.
And that's key. That's something that we, as ACP and the Step and Send program, we are constantly telling our younger audiences, check out your local community and technical colleges, see what programs and internships that they provide and that they offer. What kind of training is available for commercial refrigeration outside? Is there any outside of what you'll receive when you join your program at your local technical and community college?
And that's an excellent question. And that's why industry here in the Atlanta area was so excited in helping us put this program together, this lab together, because there are not a whole lot of places that you can go and get this sort of training. The thing that's particular or peculiar about the commercial refrigeration industry, they have to very quickly take an employee, an entry-level employee, and ramp his skill sets up very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so our program, or programs similar to these, assist an employer in this regard, in this respect. We give them the basics, and then the employer has to, invest very little training to get them up to where they need to be in terms of their skill set.
Would you attribute that to the equipment that you have in your lab? Is there something here that's not necessarily, that you wouldn't necessarily find in other commercial refrigeration labs or programs?
Well, I think any good commercial refrigeration program that's offered through a community college or two-year technical college is going to have equipment for students to train on that will equip them for the workforce. Our lab, particularly, we have a commercial refrigeration parallel rack, which is similar to what a grocery store would have, and they are exposed to that. Also, we just have all the various aspects of commercial refrigeration that you'll find out there in industry. We have ice machines, we have walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers, we have what we call remote systems, and so we have from the very basic to the more complex. So the student is exposed to pretty much every facet of commercial refrigeration that they're going to face in the field. But of course, in 2 years, you can only expose a student to so much. So we give them the basics, and then once they're hired in the field, their employer will finish their training off.
And that's great. I mean, the more exposure that you can give them at this first step, then the better they'll be in the workforce. And that leads me to one of my last questions. What types of skills do commercial refrigeration technicians need to have to be successful in the industry?
I think we've talked about that with our advisory board, our industry partners, and you would think that it would be the hard skills, learning to be a good technician, learning the electrical, learning the mechanical, but a skill that's more important is soft skills. We mean by soft skills, communication skills, being on time, working well with people, being detail-oriented. So those soft skills are key, and having a good attitude.
Oh, please have a good attitude. Goodness, no one wants to work with you if you have a bad attitude. That's important. What would you say would be some of the more important soft skills, or would you say that all of them are just as equally important?
All of them are. I mean, how you look, how you dress, how you present yourself, being on time, being on task, being focused. All of those skills are important. And then, as I said, equally important, obviously, an employee needs to understand the skill set, understand electricity, how to troubleshoot electrical circuit, understand the theory of refrigeration, the cycle, how the refrigerant travels through the entire system, and the characteristics of the refrigerant as it enters each part of the system, the compressor, the evaporator, the condenser, and the metering device. That's very important.
That's so excellent. Thank you so much for giving us that information on the tips and the tools and the soft skills that you need to be successful in this industry.
Thank you so much for taking the time and the interest in looking at our program.
Oh, it's our pleasure. This is exactly where we need to be. This is exactly the information that we need to get out to the masses. And before we leave, is there any last words that you'd like to say?
It's just it's an exciting industry. I've been involved in this industry for about 38 years. I worked as a technician. I was in management. I'm teaching it. I have an unrestricted contractor's license. And it's a field that you'll always be able to take care of yourself and a family if you have one.
That's wonderful. Thank you again, Mr. McWhorter. You guys definitely check him out. GPTC website. Go and see more about the commercial refrigeration program here. He's an amazing teacher. You all would love to be a part of this program. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll talk with you soon.
All right. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.